Okay, so we should be up and running. Great. Paul, can you see people filtering in?
No, I can't.
Participants in the
No,
participants tab.
I get...
I can,
Oh yeah, we've
Kelly.
got 86, 88. Yeah.
Oh, all you lovely people have joined us today. Thank you for coming on. We're just going to give a few minutes just to let people filter through. There's a lot of people registered today. I've had apologies from a few people that can't make it. We are recording the session, so don't worry if you need to drop out. You will absolutely get all of the content that we're going to deliver today. So yeah, we'll just let people filter in and then we'll get started.
Oh, we're up to the heady heights of 97 at the moment.
Oh, should we hit 100 and then get going?
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Sounds like a good number, doesn't it? Okay. Where we at? Oh, the tension.
Oh, I think we've topped out at 97 in total.
Oh, guys, come on. We could have done 100.
Do you want me to see if I can go out into the corridor and see if I can find a few people to join so we hit hundreds for you, mate?
Let's get going. Thank you. Well, thank you. 97 people that have joined us today. That is that's very impressive. That's pandemic webinar numbers. So thank you. I'm honoured. Right. I'm Kelly Molson. I'm the founder of Rubber Cheese, the web agency for ambitious attractions. And I am joined today by two panelists, Paul Marden, CEO of Rubber Cheese.
Hi there.
And Andy Povey, MD of UK and Ireland at Convius. Hi,
morning.
Andy. Good morning to you. Oh, actually, it's not morning here. It's afternoon here. But Paul and Andy are both in the US, so it is super, super early for them. I am absolutely delighted, slightly relieved to say that after months of hard work, the 2023 Visitor Attraction Website Report is finally ready. This is the second year that we've been able to create this report, and we've had the largest number of respondents to date, nearly 3 times the amount on last year, which is phenomenal. If you were one of the 188 visitor attractions that took part in the survey, then you'll already have received your report. You would have had that yesterday morning as a thank you for entrusting us with your information and for taking part in it. If you didn't take part, don't worry, you will have the opportunity to download it today straight after this webinar, and we'll give you the link to be able to go and do that. We're going to take Q&As at the end, so if you've got anything that you want to ask us as we go through, pop them in the Q&A box. Paul is going to keep eyes on that as we talk through, so if there's something that needs an immediate response, if he wants to stop me, he can stop me and we can talk it through. So it's going to be quite a relaxed presentation today. So just, yeah, feel free to ask us anything you want as we talk through. Firstly, though, I do have a number of thank yous that I need to make, and the list is long and prestigious. Firstly, thank you genuinely from every person that took part in this. They took time out of their already incredibly busy days, and they entrusted us with their data. We cannot do this without you. We really cannot do this without you. So thank you. Thank you to all of the associations that supported us in spreading the word and encouraging members and their kind of social media following to take part. Alva and Asva have been incredible supporters of us from the very start of this last year. Huge thank you to both of those. Avia, Visit England, ASDC, Blue Loop, Devon's Top Attractions, Cornwall Association of Tourist Attractions, AIM, ACE, Experience UK, Planet Attractions. I've probably missed someone off the list. I'm really sorry if I have. But thank you to everybody that's done that, and all of our sector friends, clients and colleagues as well that also helped us spread the word. It's been a phenomenal success this year. Last but not least, a huge thank you to our partners this year, Convius. I'm going to hand over to Andy, who you've already met, who's going to say a few words about their participation this year. Thank you, Andy.
No, thank you, Kelly, and thank you, Paul. So I want to start by actually saying properly thank you to both of you and to Rubber Cheese for this initiative. It's we're all passionate about the attractions industry. Looking at conversion, looking at what your guests are doing online is really possibly the most impactful thing that any attraction operator can do to improve their bottom line, to make their business much more sustainable. So for the work that you're doing to elevate the attention that everybody should be paying to online conversion, and for the benchmarking, thank you very much. And I think that's all I want to say, really. If you're stuck with your conversion, give me a call. We can sort something out. That's the marketing piece out of the way. Let's go and look at the information.
Brilliant. Thanks, Andy. And again, when we send out emails, you'll have all of Andy's details if you want to get in touch with him as well. Right. Let's get cracking then. I'm going to take you through the report content. Then there'll be time for Q&A. So as I said, just pop your questions in the box as we go along. If we need to stop on a slide and you want to ask questions, then that's fine too. We're recording this today. So again, if you have to nip out, don't worry, you're not going to miss out on anything. Let's go. Okay, so 2022, Rubber Cheese launched the first attractions website survey and report. From that, we were able to set the first digital benchmarks for the sector. This year, we wanted to dive a bit deeper into that crucial relationship between user experience and visitor conversions. We set out to understand whether or not the benchmarks were still relevant, but also to get into insight into why they're relevant. All the data has been gathered voluntarily through an online survey, which was conducted over 10 weeks between May and July in 2023. The survey used a variety of qualitative and quantitative questions, and it was completed by attractions across the UK, the EU, and as far as North America, which was very exciting. The survey also revisited the vital questions that we asked last year on bounce rates, basket abandonment rates, and conversion rates. And as I said, respondents were encouraged to take part in loads of marketing activities conducted by us, our partners Convius, and all of the brilliant people that helped us spread the word far and wide. And we've got a few demographic insights to share with you. So 24% of responses were from museums. 71% of attractions who responded are open all year round. 68% of attractions who responded are aimed at families with school-age children. And 25% of survey respondents put their website budget at between 5k and 25k, which actually is an increase on last year, which is lovely to see and surprising actually, because we know that this has been a really difficult year, and we know that budgets for marketing were cut quite dramatically for a lot of attractions. So it's really good to see that people are still able to invest, and actually invest more in their websites than they were last year. 55% of responses recorded over 100,000 annual visitors each year. And 71% of the attractions that took part are open all year round as well. And again, like last year, we looked at platform insights. So we looked at things like most used CRM systems, and there's actually been a really big change this year. So last year's number one was Merak. This year, 9% of attractions have moved over to Dynamics 365. Now, we've got a much wider database this year. So, you know, we had 70 attractions take part last year, this time 188. So it was definitely going to have an effect on these. But that's a really interesting shift. We still got quite a few people who don't know what CRM system they're actually using though. So that's still quite interesting. And that's similar for the rest of the platforms too. So most use CMS systems, not a huge amount of change there. WordPress, Drupal and Umbraco are still the top 3 platforms that you're using. And we've got fewer people who didn't know what they were being, what platforms are being used as well this year. So that's really good. Most used booking systems. Again, not a huge amount of change. DigiTickets still in pole position, but Merak and Access Gamma again still and Gateway still being used quite frequently across attractions. What was quite interesting is that 48% are using something else, so another booking system that wasn't in the ones that you could choose from, or a combination as well. So what we might do next year is kind of structure the questions on how we can understand what that combination is, or whether they're bespoke systems as well, because that would be really interesting to know. And then again, most used e-commerce systems. So we've just had a bit of a shuffle around really. So Shopify and WooCommerce still taking the top 2 positions. a higher percentage of people using Shopify. It's an incredibly robust and simple platform to use. So I wonder if there's a correlation there between the size of the attraction that uses Shopify as well, because it's really simple and easy to set up internally. And now we'll start with benchmarks. So overall with the benchmarks, there was a small improvement in certain areas of them. However, the majority of them remained the same. And that's what's prompted us the need to understand why this is the case. So this is what we'll talk about when we come to the key insights. The key benchmark for this year for basket abandonment rate is at 75%. Now that's 5% higher than it was last year. And that's the one that's most surprising to me. I was absolutely convinced that this benchmark was going to reduce. So I thought it was going to sit at around about the 60% mark, but it's actually risen. And again, we do have a larger data set, so we're working with more attractions this year. But we think this could be related to a number of the items that we're going to talk about in the key insights. Steps in the booking journey, the lack of mobile optimization and quite significant lack of testing around it, which we'll get to, and potentially possibly less sophisticated systems than a standard traditional e-commerce platform might use. So maybe we are as a sector, I think we are potentially using some relatively outdated platforms potentially for some when you've needed to get online really kind of quickly back in the pandemic. We might still be using systems that are not fully suitable for actually the task that you need to carry out. But let's have a look. In general, this is relatively positive, though, I think, because if you look at the rates across the other sectors, they've remained fairly consistent. So I think we're quite confident in saying that 75% is the benchmark for the standard here, for the sector here. And then bounce rate. So bounce rate has only increased by 1%, which is still really positive. It's moved from 39% to 40%. However, it's still really below the averages for travel and tourism and leisure sectors, which remain over 50%. So that's a huge difference. And again, it justifies the reason that we needed to do this in the first place and take visitor attractions out of travel and leisure. What's interesting with this one is we actually asked this year as well. So obviously there's been the transition across from Universal Analytics over to Google Analytics 4. And we did ask attractions to submit their engagement rates. Now, the transition happened off the top of my head, July time, and which was midway through our survey. So I think that next year, this will become much more relevant. Unfortunately, with this, only 5% of our respondents were able to provide an answer to this question. So that means that the data in this area, we may not be reliable enough for us. So I think we're not hugely confident that this is the benchmark for the sector. However, it was interesting that in the 5% of people that could give us this, most stated their engagement rate was around about 40% or above. So we could use that as the base level. I think this is definitely one that we need to build on for next year, though, once that system has been ingrained more into your organisations and there's more data to share. And conversion rate. So the benchmark for conversion rates on visitor attraction sites remained fairly consistent this year, with a slight increase to 5% from 4.93%. Now, an increase of 0.07% seems quite small. However, it could potentially add an extra 12k in turnover for our average attraction, or over 300,000 for our top performer. Now, this was based on some financial workings out that we did internally, and I think we were quite the word as Paul, jump in here. The word
I think we were quite conservative with that. When we looked at that number, we were looking really at average ticket prices only, not taking into account the full total value of a visitor to an attraction by the time they've bought their food and drink and they visited a gift shop and so forth. So those numbers could be on the lower side, but we thought it was sensible to be conservative in that way.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to talk about conversion rates and why these are important a little bit later in our key insights. So while it's positive to see that the decoupling of visitor attraction websites from the wider travel and tourism industry a year on still remains really relevant, what we wanted to do was now see why we're seeing the results that we're seeing. So user experience has become the cornerstone for website optimization over the last decade due to increasing user expectations, tech advancements, and the recognition that a positive user experience directly impacts metrics such as bounce rates, conversion, and customer satisfaction. In our survey, we wanted to explore how important user experience and customer experience were seen within visitor attraction websites. We know the sector provides first-class customer experiences at its physical locations, and we wanted to see if this played a role in the digital world as well. So we're going to share the key insights from the report and illustrate where we believe the most opportunity exists for visitor attractions. I'm going to say percentage a lot today as well, so sorry, percentage. Okay, our findings demonstrate that for 76% of the respondents, the majority of their website traffic comes from mobile devices. And this is sitting at from 60% upwards. So some attractions are seeing from 60%, that's about the average. Some are seeing 70, 80 plus. And 56% of our respondents believed that mobile optimization was incredibly important to offering a positive visitor experience for their sites. So on the surface, most respondents appear to be taking really good steps to ensure their site is optimized for mobile. 31% of the people that took part scored their current sites 9 out of 10. So this year, if you remember, if you took part in the survey, we asked you to self-score some of these areas. So we asked you to self-score how well your mobile sites are optimized. However, while it was really clear that respondents understood the importance of mobile optimization, there's areas where huge improvements could be made. A staggering, and genuinely I'm staggered by this, a staggering 96% of attractions that took part have never carried out any form of user testing on their mobile experience. And that's despite already knowing that they have traffic from mobile devices of 60, 70, 80%. When we asked attractions to score their site's mobile optimization, 31% gave the site a 9 out of 10 and 24% gave their site an 8 out of 10. But what that's indicating to us is that these scores are based on internal assumptions rather than tangible user-centered data. If nearly 100% of the people that took part haven't actually tested their mobiles with their users. Google research has shown that 61% of internet users are unlikely to return to a mobile site that they had trouble accessing, indicating that it's important for attractions to consider the implementation of user testing across their online presence. And we've seen this evidenced in the responses from our survey, where 18% of those who received most of their website traffic from a mobile device had a bounce rate of over 50%. So that indicates that if you're not optimizing on mobile, you're actually losing quite a significant chunk of your audience. That's not the only stat about testing. There's another one that we'll come to later, but I think this really highlights the importance that it's not enough just to have a responsive website anymore. The amount of testing and optimization that needs to be carried out has got to be to a really high level and a high standard. Okay, so another key insight that we looked at last year and we've repeated this year is around page load time. So 33% of respondents have a page load time of between 2 and 4 seconds. Our 2022 report looked at the role of page load time on bounce rate, and we illustrated that for every 1 second of load time, there's a loss of about 50% of traffic. Responses from this year showed that there remains a link between sites with a higher load time and a higher bounce rate, and that 33% of those who took part stated their average page load time sat between 2 and 4 seconds. Wider research found that 47% of consumers across general e-commerce sites expect a page to load in 2 seconds or less, and that 40% of those will abandon a site that takes more than 3 seconds to load. So this means that for visitor attractions, working to reduce this page load time can be the first line of defense against a higher bounce rate. So again, none of these things are difficult to review and implement. Any one of you could go away straight after this webinar and go and run a Lighthouse test on your site, and it will give you information around how quickly your page your pages are loading, and it will give you suggestions of things that you can do to help convert that, help actually improve that as well. We're going to be running a series of insight sessions throughout the year from this report, which shows you how to do some of those things as well. So if Lighthouse, what I suggested there, is completely alien to you, don't worry, there'll be a webinar coming soon. Okay, so 70% of respondents find technical issues result in frustration and negative user experience. That's not surprising. One of the key areas of importance with any website is its reliability and technical performance. And the Baymard Institute, who regularly reviews websites on an annual basis, just not essentially in our sector, states that technical bugs during a checkout process, like errors in form fields or payment processing, can directly contribute to higher abandonment rates. Yet, despite website reliability being seen as incredibly important to overall visitor satisfaction and experience, 49% of respondents were unable to state the steps taken to ensure their website's reliability and minimize technical errors. So we're unable to kind of talk about the process that we'll go through if something goes wrong. So what do you do? How do you elevate an issue? How do you understand if there is an issue in the first place? Are your guests actually telling you that there's a problem, and what do you then do about it? 70% said that when they did have technical issues on site, the main consequence was user frustration and then negative user experience, and sometimes an increase in inbound messages. This then results in pressure on the internal team, the customer care teams, alongside a higher abandonment rates and a loss of consumer trust. So this may indicate a lack of understanding of how problematic technical issues can be for conversion and abandonment rate. So what we'd like to do is just to see improvements in this area, so attractions kind of stay on top of monitoring and fixing those areas. And I think one of the biggest ways to do that is to do testing and carrying out and do it with your users, because you can become a little bit kind of blind to it yourself, or sometimes you're so used to working through a process that's so normal to you that you don't realize that that's alien and jarring to somebody else. So monitoring and fixing these errors is absolutely key to preventing traffic loss and maintaining trust with your customers as well. A significant portion of our respondents, about 82%, revealed that they had never conducted any A/B testing on their sites, and 70% have never conducted any user testing of any kind on their websites. That stat and the stat around testing on mobiles are the two that have, I think, shocked me the most about the whole survey. User testing is absolutely vital for gaining an accurate picture of what works and what doesn't work on a site, to ensure that the improvements made enhance the user experience. This can then lead to increased engagement and higher conversion rates. There's a study by the Nielsen Norman Group that found that improving a website's usability can increase conversion rates by about 200%, up to 200%. And I think this is, what I was getting at on the last slide is it's really important to be aware of familiarity bias. Just because you think your website is really easy to navigate because you're familiar with it doesn't mean it actually is. Paul, there's something that you, if you want to jump in here, there's something that you said on a podcast episode that we recorded last week that was around, it's really hard for you to take a step back and not know something about your own site.
Yeah, we all come to it with our own level of knowledge, and if we've been using the website over a period of time, as you say, we become completely blind to it, and it takes a huge amount of empathy to be able to put yourself into the shoes of somebody that knows nothing, that sat on the sofa at 8 o'clock at night planning what they're going to do over the weekend, who's trying to do 3 things at once and doesn't know where to find the thing on your site because they don't have the level of knowledge that you have. And really, as you say, getting people to do that testing for you is one of the easiest ways to get that insight, isn't it? Because it's hard to take that knowledge out of your head and then pretend to be like that person and accurately represent what they're doing.
Yeah, I gave a good example of this last week when I spoke at the Alpha conference about how I actually spend my browsing and purchasing time. And actually, so there's two ways that I do it. So I'm 45-year-old woman with a toddler. My purchasing time is in a really small window at the end of the day. So it's normally between 9 and about 10:30 p.m. while me and my husband are sitting on the sofa attempting to watch something that we've both agreed that we will enjoy for that 1 hour of TV a day. But I will need to be watching that with one eye and also doing all of the other things that I need to do, which might be booking tickets, it might be buying stuff that I need, it might be, looking on Vinted, God, whatever that may be. That's your window of opportunity to capture me. And that's all on my mobile. And I don't want to get off that sofa. I don't want to go back into my home office and open up my laptop for any of those things. So if the thing that I'm trying to do doesn't work on my mobile, I'm probably just going to stop, go somewhere else, or find something else. I did exactly that with booking a nail appointment 2 weeks ago. So it's not buying a ticket, but it is making a purchase. The mobile, the system that the salon was using to take booking appointments would not work on my mobile, just would not work. Just nothing that I did would, and there was no error message coming up. It just would not work. And I ended up so frustrated, and I knew that I only had one day to get booked in. I ended up going to a different salon and then that booking system worked. So I got my appointment booked. And it's little things like that we have to think about when we're doing our user testing, where people are, what's their situation, how busy they are.
I bought tickets the other day for something and I did manage to make the purchase in the end. I'm fairly motivated. I do use these systems all the time, so you'd think I would be able to get through a simple buying process, but it took me 3 loops around the checkout before I managed to get the right combination of tick boxes that were required and drop down lists, because the marketing team wanted to know how I had found out about the attraction. And then you could see that the guest experience, people wanted to know that I'd confirmed I didn't have COVID, and I just kept getting the combination of those settings wrong, and every time it reset the screen it wiped out what I'd done previously, and literally it took me 3 times round. And yeah, that was me concentrating on doing it, and I still was like, what am I doing wrong? I can't figure this out.
From someone that builds websites for a living.
Exactly.
Okay. Out of all the responses, 76% said they believe their website design and navigation were kept consistent, showing that the sector is aware of the importance of these elements. And when we say consistent across multiple platforms, it means, we've talked about this previously, is that you might have your website built in WordPress, you might use the Shopify platform for your e-commerce, you might then use another booking system for your ticketing. So you've got customers that are potentially interacting with 3 different systems, and they might all look slightly different, or one of them might look significantly different from the other, and that kind of starts to create a confusion and sometimes a lack of trust as well. It's not pie. What we saw is that websites that were high scoring for their design and navigation actually made more sales over the past 12 months. And this is self-scoring, remember. So this is not us saying your design looks really great. This is you saying, we think our design is really good. We're going to score this a 9 out of 10. Those websites had 200,000 to 500,000 completed transactions. However, websites with lower design and navigation scores didn't do as well, all stating they had below 50,000 completed transactions in the same amount of time in the last 12 months. But what's really interesting is when you dig into the data, attractions who think their websites have good design and navigation actually have a higher conversion rate by 1 or 2% too, which doesn't sound like much. But then if we go back to our average attraction, a 1% increase in conversion could be worth tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands for our top performing. And before you say, hang on, that's fine, that's okay for all the big household names, the big organizations, they've potentially got bigger budgets. What about the smaller or regional locations? Well, there were actually a fair few less well-known organisations that had really great navigation and design and really strong conversion rates to go through it. Now, we have had the Express we've been allowed to share these with you. So the survey is completely anonymous. However, Roman Baths, London Zoo and Smithwick's Experience have said that we could share this. And this is a really great example. So Roman Baths, London Zoo are two incredibly well-known attractions, probably attract multiple audiences and international audiences too. Smithwick's, not so much, right? I mean, this was a new experience for us when we were going through the survey. And I have to say that they perform to the level that Roman Baths and London Zoo do. And that is phenomenal for a local regional attraction. So you don't have to be huge. You just need to invest in the right things and you'll get the right responses. Okay. Our research found that visitor attraction websites are really good at signposting where tickets could be purchased. Really good at that. You've all got the message about the big buy buttons. Well done. And you've also got really compelling offers. But like last year, it's clear that visitor attraction sites need to work a little bit harder on their booking process. 68% of respondents told us they had 4 or more steps, and a whopping 75% still said that customers had to go through 5 or more steps to book. So there's still real room for improvement in making these processes smoother and faster. Respondents were asked to rate their overall visitor experience on their websites. We also asked open-ended questions, which you can see some of the answers of on the screen. One of the most common reasons a site was given a low overall rating was due to a long and confusing booking process, and that came up over and over and over again. So it's exactly the same situation as last year. And this is a real challenge. Many of you will not be in the position to influence this or make change to it. The only way you can reduce the number of steps in your booking journey is if you own that booking journey. So your agency has designed your booking journey and it's integrated via API with your ticketing platform. Now, that's not always doable. It's not always cost effective for attractions. It takes a lot of internal team time up. And often it's easier to use an off-the-shelf ticketing platform that is already set up to do what you want it to do. But that's where the challenge lies, is that you can influence if you own, but you can't influence so much if you don't own. So we don't know how much this is going to change. It's something to start championing your booking systems about. But what was really interesting is when we looked at the impact of multiple booking steps on the average conversion rate in financial terms, it becomes really clear that this is something that needs to be prioritized. So what we worked out financial terms is, for the average attraction, if you removed 1 step, it could increase the average annual turnover by about £8,000. And for the top performing websites that took part, this could see an increase of around about 225k. And I think, again, we've been quite conservative with these financials, Paul.
Yeah, completely. If you were to take in the true value of somebody when they walk in the door beyond their ticket price, I think you could see that increase substantially.
Okay, another really interesting one where we found a correlation between content and financials. Regular content updates obviously help to keep your websites fresh, engaging, they build credibility, brand trust, and they contribute to increased engagement levels. 31% of respondents said that they updated their online content multiple times a week. And I think if you've got an attraction where you've got loads going on, I always use Holcomb as a brilliant example of this, because they have so many facets to their organisation. The depth of content that they can produce because of all of the things that they have going on is phenomenal. However, 22% of respondents said they had infrequent content updates or didn't update their content at all. So what's really interesting here is that we've found a direct correlation between the frequency of content updates and revenue. So attractions who updated their content more frequently had an average of between 25 and 50,000 completed website purchases a year. Those who didn't, on average, had around 10,000 completed purchases in the same time frame. In addition to that, of the respondents who recognised the need for regular content updates but weren't actioning them, 23% stated that their average sales conversion rate sat between 1% and 4%, which is lower than our benchmark of 5%. So content can have a significant effect on your ticket bookings, which is probably something that we assumed, but now we can actually prove it with a direct correlation. I think that's fascinating, and there's so much more that we can do around that. There'll be a webinar. I'm going to skip through the next one. So we've got about 25 minutes left. I want to make sure that there's time for Q&A. I can see that there's a couple of Q&As in the box that we'll get to. So, customization. 85% of our respondents stated that they believed personalization was highly important for the customer experience of their websites, but only 6% actually offered any personalization functionality to their users. So this is kind of indicating there's a really large gap between what attractions believe their website should offer and what they are able to offer. And there's loads of reasons why this is probably the case, including potential lack of budgets, lack of resource, maybe lack of understanding about how these things can work, or insufficient systems. But I think what's great is that it's recognizing the opportunity that personalization can bring, and how we kind of how we understand how important that is going to be to future benchmarks, and how they can be improved because of this. Personalization is so exciting, and I think this is something that will become more prominent when we run the survey again next year, with the influence of AI and ChatGPT and all of those kind of things. But personalization doesn't need to be a hugely costive or challenging thing to do. Andy, I actually wondered if you could talk to us briefly about the level of personalization that you can offer with Convius, because there's a way that you sit on top of the websites, don't you? So you can actually harvest some of the data.
Yeah, and well, it's all about knowing. The more you know about your partner, your customer, the better you can message them. So we can all guess here that if a member comes onto your website, you don't want to be promoting the ticket for them to visit at the weekend, because they've already got a ticket. They're probably coming to see what the weather's like, or what events you've got on, or how to get there, what the opening times are, that kind of stuff. So the more you know, and the more advantage you can take of what Google tells you about the people coming to your website, the better you're going to be able to match what you're offering to what that consumer is telling you they need. So Google will tell you, give you segment data, or very high level profile data. So you can start looking at whether your people coming to your website are interested in dining, or if they're interested in clothing, or if they're interested in shopping. So you can use all of that data to start tailoring your site. So if you've got a large portion of food enthusiasts coming to your website, but you don't have a page that talks about food and the catering offerings that you've got, then you're missing an opportunity. You're not servicing your customers. It sounds really complicated. It's not. It's just, I was equating this to the Waltons in a conversation I had with someone 2 or 3 days ago. And it's like, I got to see running this general store in Walton Town. He knew everything about all of the customers there, so he'd know exactly what to put in front of them. All we're doing is saying, do exactly the same now. Take what you know about your customers and give them what they want.
That's a brilliant example, Andy, but, yeah,
cultural reference.
I feel like that cultural reference has just aged the three of us, because we know what you're talking about, but maybe some of our audience doesn't.
Well, possibly, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, so as Andy said, it's all about what you know about your consumers and what you're delivering to them, and that goes back to the content and how frequently you're actually delivering what it is they want to see. Okay. Incentivization. So only 32% of respondents use incentivization to encourage their visitors to engage with their website and complete a purchase. And we're talking about things like discounts, referrals, promotions, loyalty programs here. The data revealed that these sites did tend to see, so only 32% of our respondents stated they use any form of incentivization. However, the data revealed that these sites did tend to see a higher percentage of completed transactions. So with the majority citing between 20,000 and 50,000 per year than those who didn't offer any incentivization. Now, we didn't ask this question last year. This wasn't part of the survey then. And so this may be a direct result of the cost of living crisis. Consumers are shopping around for the best offer or the best value for money right now. And so we're seeing an increase in purchases with those attractions that are offering those kind of incentives, whether it's 2-for-1 discounts, excess benefits to the memberships that you're going to offer as well. So, but it is something to think about. And what we found is that implementing a 10% discount did lead to a 50% increase in conversions, which is quite significant. This might not be the case next year as well, so it'd be really interesting to see how that one plays out. And our final key insight, I feel like I've timed this really well. Oh, look at this.
And we got loads of good questions coming in as well. So we've got time to be able to talk about the great questions we've got.
Great, that is good. Well, thank you everyone for being engaged with this. So research by HubSpot found that interactive content, including things like quizzes, assessment polls, can actually increase time spent on websites by up to 80%. While the Content Marketing Institute showed that 81% of marketers agreed that interactive content grabbed more attention than just static content on the same topics. 75% of our respondents said they believed that offering interactivity on their websites was important to the visitor experience, with some using things like virtual tours, video content, and interactive maps on their site. So we're seeing, this is a shift that took place from pandemic times, where we had to do things in a different way, and we had to give our audiences ways to interact with our attraction without actually being able to be there. However, 53% did not have any interactive elements at all for their customers. So there is quite a significant difference here in people that think that it's really important to actually what attractions are delivering these kind of content. And I think it's really important to state that these things don't need to be a huge investment. They don't need to be a costly investment. There's lots of things that you can add to your site if you think it's relevant to your audience for a relatively low budget. It's a really great tool to use for the start of the visitor experience. So, we have to remember that the start of that, the visitor experience for most people is when they engage with your website or your social media channels, rather than when they turn up at your site. So if we can use kind of interactive content to motivate users to engage with the site, spend more time on the website, and ultimately make a purchase, then that's the win all round. I am going to stop there. I've got a few other slides about things that we can share with you, but I think I'd like to stop there quickly and because I can see the 9 questions that we need to get to answer. So why don't I ping back to?
Shall I work through some of those questions?
Yes, yeah. Go for it.
So there was one person that was commenting, and I think this is along the same sorts of lines that we were assuming when we were talking about the Google Analytics and the engagement rates, and saying, did we get such a low response rate because maybe GA4 is so new that people didn't really understand what they were doing? And I think we concluded that, and also it could be because it'd only been around GA4's been around for quite some time, and there will be some attractions that will have built up quite a lot of data within GA4, but those that switched at the very last minute when they had no choice but to switch across, they probably didn't have the volumes of data. So I reckon those two things are interacting.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I think that there was a lack of understanding there. I would say that I've been to a number of presentations on it, and it isn't as straightforward as it could be. But there are brilliant people out there doing brilliant things to help attractions understand how to use Google Analytics 4. And actually, Chris Unit and the team at One Further, who I've seen speak a number of times on the topic, have got some really interesting resource around that as well. So One Further is a really good place to go and have a little look if you are struggling with your Google G4 Analytics.
Mike Coe has said, what's the best way to conduct user testing and collect feedback? That's a good one.
That's a good question. Hello, Mike. So there's multiple ways that you can do this. One of the best ways to do it, and let's face it, as attractions, you've got a really good incentive to offer people, hey, come and do some user testing for us and have a free day out. It's just to get people in the room, get people into the room and set them some tasks that you want them to carry out, and then you can monitor it. I mean, you can ask them to take notes on how they found those tasks and whether they could complete them, and what the frustrations were or what the good things were. But also having someone in the room that's monitoring how they're using those sites as well. And again, do it on desktop, do it on mobile. If you've got 80% of your traffic from mobile, there's no point sticking someone on a laptop to do these things. There's other ways to do it. There's online platforms that you can use. So one, usertesting.com, you can go and sign up for an account on that, and you'll be able to, I think on that one you can select the kind of demographic that you want people to carry, people you want to carry out your testing. And then again, you set them tasks. You know, I want people to go through and purchase a ticket. I want someone to go through our site, see if they can find this and sign up for our newsletter, whatever it might be. And then they'll kind of record videos of how they're doing those things. There's things like Hotjar, where you can test how people are actually viewing your site, so you can see where they're looking and what they're looking for, and what things are appealing to them and not appealing to them, and those kind of things. So it's a mixture of some of those things.
Alex Cayley says, do we have any examples of the attractions that are doing the website personalization well?
Oh, that's a good question.
It is, isn't it?
Oh, Alex, we will, but actually Paul and I are recording a monthly podcast session on each of the topics from the podcast, and personalization is the next one to record. So I can't I don't have permission. So I always, obviously everybody that's taken part in the survey is completely anonymous. We have to ask permission. I don't have permission to share yet, but there will be a podcast episode about it, and we will absolutely be sharing people that are doing good things in that area. So subscribe now, skip the queue.
It'll be interesting, won't it? Because that was a much smaller set of data. There was fewer respondents that were in that group of people that had the personalization built into their site. So yeah, we're fishing in a much smaller pond in that area. So it'll be interesting. It'd be interesting to see whether, when we do this again next year, whether, you know, do we get more responses from people that are doing personalization but may not be recognizing that they're doing personalization.
Yeah.
When Andy was talking a minute ago, he gave an example that some people might not think of as being personalization. I always think that there are very simple things that you can do that personalize the site, that can be about content. It doesn't have to be about really complex algorithms to figure out people that buy this will also are interested in this. There are simple ways of doing it, and it may well be that the response rates were low because people aren't recognizing that they are personalizing. They are thinking about who the audience is and how they interact, and giving them things that they want. Okay, anonymous attendee has said, I'm looking at a CRM implementation strategy. What considerations do you need when integrating with a website?
Paul, you are the CRM person, so I will offload that one to you, if that's okay.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think CRM means so many different things to many different people. So starting out with what are your goals? Figuring out what are you trying to capture in that CRM? What do you want to achieve once you've got the data in there? And then figuring out how do you make that, how do you link the website so that you build this, you know, rich database of really interesting insights about your customers and your potential customers, and link that with their behaviors on the websites. Can you link your ticketing system to your CRM system so that once people buy tickets, they automatically get added into the CRM system? Can you do personalization based on the things that you've built up about that person in the CRM system? So if you know that they've bought stuff before, do you present on the homepage of the website information about people that are returning? Let's say you've got an annual pass scheme. You don't, if somebody's already bought a ticket from you, don't waste the effort trying to convince them to buy a ticket because they've already bought one. Convince them of the reasons why they should revisit. Figuring out what it is that you're trying to do, and then how do you collect the data, and then how do you exploit the data. Those are, I think, they're the interesting things that you've got to be thinking about. Sorry, I geeked out there, didn't I? I really enjoy data. Oh, here's one. Chaz said, were there any insights on the impact of dynamic pricing?
Oh, good question.
Can I get this one?
Yeah,
yes.
Go for it, Andy.
I don't know about the survey, Kelly, so maybe that would be something for you to share. At Convius, dynamic pricing is one of the tools that we use to improve conversion. And all of our research shows us that consumers actually like having the ability to choose how much they're going to pay. If you think of was it Stonegate published the press release 2 or 3 weeks ago about surge pricing and increasing the price of a pint by 20 pence when they're busy. Obviously, everybody got very upset about that. That's not new. Pubs have been doing happy hours for as long as I've been drinking. And back to my Walton's reference, that's obviously quite a long time. It's all about the messaging. Basically, prices go down, it's a really positive message. People love it. Prices go up, it's quite negative and people don't like it. And more anecdotally, we did a webinar with Plops 2 or 3 weeks ago in conjunction with IAPA. And they actually had a story of a consumer who came to the guest services point within the park. Plops is a large park in Belgium, or a Belgian TV company that has 11 attractions, but their largest park. A consumer came to the customer service desk and actually said, "Thank you for giving me the choice of how much to pay," which really validates all of the sort of theory that we had in the background. So it's really important to understand what dynamic pricing is, and we could do a whole other webinar on that for another couple of hours. But our research, our experience is that consumers really like getting a deal. Basically, we all do. So using dynamic pricing and presenting it in a manner where the consumer is winning and getting a bargain it's really where that achieves significant improvements in conversion.
Yeah, Convius has done some really good research around it, so it's definitely worth going and checking out their website. There's a number of blogs and there was a number of webinars last year on the topic too. We don't have any specific insight around dynamic pricing. It's a real challenge with the survey. The survey amount of questions in it was almost double what it was last year, and we have to be really conscious of where we focus our attention and how many people will take part, how long it's going to take them to take part, because marketing teams are already stretched. We don't want someone to be sitting for half an hour, 40 minutes having to fill in our survey. So it would be really interesting to understand what more or what different you'd like us to investigate next year, and we can always look at that. But I think there is plenty of other insight around dynamic pricing out there already.
We are coming in to sort of 5 minutes to land, and we've got lots of questions in front of us. So I think what I'm going to do is pick out 1 or 2 more, and then I think what we'll do is we'll take all of these questions and answer them offline, so we try and get a decent answer to everybody. Is that? Yeah,
definitely.
There's a few questions around location. So there were, Rupert Bean says, were there any key differences in results between attractions in the London southeast to the rest of the country?
Good question. We can find out. We haven't analysed that for the report, but there's this year there's so much data that there's more that we can release throughout the year. So absolutely, we can look at that if that's something that people are interested in. Give us a thumbs up if you are. But in this report, no. But absolutely, we've got the data to be able to do that, and that is something that we could look at releasing past the launch.
We've done some slicing and dicing, haven't we, of groups of subsets of the data and how that compares to the wider audience, and we've done that based on associations, so people that are in ALVA, people that are in ASDC, and having insights into that. And we've done some localization stuff as well, looking at all of Ireland. and comparing that to the rest of the world, but we haven't done it on regions of the UK and how they compare to one another.
No, but it would be really great to do that. And actually, you know, the only reason that we can do that this year is because we've had so many people take part. So again, thanks.
Should we do a last question then? I've got Lindsay Appleby, and she said she's interested in improving user experience. Well done, Lindsay. Do you have any advice and resources to look into this in relation to website design?
Yes, I think that we might have a few blogs on our site that would be useful to you. There's also, you can also look at what you already have. So we're big believers in not necessarily having to start from scratch, but I think that what's most important is to understand how your user experience is already performing. So have you carried out any testing on what you already have? It might not mean that you need to make a significant difference to what you already have. There might be some smaller tweaks in terms of like that marginal gain approach that you can make, but I think what's important is to carry out some kind of UX review. Listen, we can absolutely do that for you. If you'd like to get in touch, we offer those as a service, and we also offered one as a prize for everyone taking part in this survey, which Cheddar Gorge won, and they're going to be taking us up on later on in the year. So yeah, again, it comes back to you'll be looking at your analytics and seeing how people, how people are interacting with the site. You can put things like Hotjar on your site, so again, you can see how people are interacting with the actual page and where things are. There's lots of different things that you can do, and feel free, if you want to pop me over an email, kelly@rubbercheese.com, then I'll happily send over some resource that might be able to support you with that.
Okay, I think that's our Q&A wrapped up. So shall I hand back to you then to pull things to a close?
Thank you everybody for coming along today. I'm always so blown away by people's interest in what we're doing, and so grateful for everyone giving up their time as well. We will get back to people on their Q&As. Give us a bit of time. There's an awful lot of work going on at the moment, launching the report and speaking at VAC on Thursday as well, but we will come back to you all. Thank you again to Andy and the team at Convius for sponsoring this year's report and allowing us to make it bigger and better. I'm so grateful. Please go and check out Convius's website. Go and have a look at the resource that they have, especially around dynamic pricing. It is really interesting. They did carry out a number of reports on that last year. If you don't listen to Skip the Queue, give it a little listen. We've got some incredible guests already released and coming up this year, which I'm so excited about. Paul and I are actually doing a monthly podcast this year, and we'll be going a little bit more in depth into some of the topics that we've talked about today as well. And again, if you've got any kind of digital topics or anything that's a challenge for you, get in touch with us, and we'll make one of those a topic and talk about some things that you can do to make things better. Thanks again for everyone coming today. We'll be sending out the recording of this, so you'll have it for prosperity, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thanks, Kelly.